Hey Mia, I thought today we could dive into something really exciting, the origin and evolution of the Olympic Games.
That sounds great, Dad. I've always been curious about the Olympics. I know it's a big deal now, but I don't really know how it all started. Was it anything like the Olympics we see on TV today?
The Olympics we watch today have evolved a lot, but their roots go all the way back to ancient Greece, around 776 BC, in a place called Olympia. The original games were quite different, but they had a similar spirit of competition and celebration.
Wow, that's really old. But why did they start them? Was it just for fun?
Not exactly. The ancient Olympics were actually a religious festival dedicated to Zeus, the king of the Greek gods. The Greeks believed that by competing in athletic events, they were honoring Zeus and seeking his favor. The games were a mix of religious devotion and athletic prowess.
So it wasn't just about sports?
Right. The Olympics were much more than just athletic competitions. They were a cultural event that brought together people from different city-states across Greece. There were also religious ceremonies, sacrifices, and feasts. It was a way for the Greeks to celebrate their shared heritage and beliefs.
That's so cool. But what kind of events did they have back then? Were they anything like the sports we see now?
Some events were similar, but many were quite different. The ancient Olympics included running races like the Stadion, which was a short sprint, and the Dialos, a double-stayed race. They also had the Dolikos, a long-distance race, and events like wrestling, boxing, and pankration, which was a no-holds-barred mix of boxing and wrestling. There was also the pentathlon, which included running, long jump, discus throw, javelin throw, and wrestling.
Pankration sounds intense. Wasn't it dangerous?
It was very dangerous. Pankration had very few rules. Basically, anything was allowed except biting and eye gouging. It was a test of strength, skill, and endurance. The matches could be brutal, and they often ended when one competitor was too injured to continue or conceded defeat.
That's crazy. It's hard to imagine sports being that intense. Did everyone get to participate, or were there rules about who could compete?
Great question, Mia. In the beginning, only free-born Greek men could compete in the Olympics. Women were not allowed to participate, and married women were even forbidden from attending the Games. However, there was a separate festival called the Heraean Games, dedicated to the goddess Hera, where young women could compete in foot races.
It's interesting how different things were back then. But what happened to the Olympics? Why did they stop?
The ancient Olympic Games continued for nearly 12 centuries, but they came to an end in 393 AD, when the Roman Emperor Theodosius I banned all pagan festivals as part of his efforts to promote Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. The Olympics were seen as a pagan event, so they were discontinued.
That's so sad. I guess they were forgotten for a long time then?
Yes, they were largely forgotten for over 1,000 years. But then, in the 19th century, there was a renewed interest in ancient Greece and its culture. This led to the revival of the Olympic Games in 1896, thanks to a Frenchman named Pierre de Coubertin. He believed in the power of sport to bring people together and promote peace.
Pierre de Coubertin? How did he get the idea to bring back the Olympics?
Pierre de Coubertin was inspired by the ancient Greek ideals of athletic competition and education. He was also influenced by the English public school system, which emphasized physical education as part of a well-rounded education. He believed that reviving the Olympics could promote international understanding and friendship through sports.
That's such a cool idea. How did he make it happen?
It wasn't easy. Coubertin organized an international congress in 1894 in Paris, where he proposed the idea of reviving the Olympic Games. The idea was well received, and the International Olympic Committee, IOC, was formed. The first modern Olympic Games were held 2 years later in 1896 in Athens, Greece, as a nod to the original Games.
How many countries participated in the first modern Olympics?
The first modern Olympics were quite small compared to today's standards. There were only about 14 countries and 241 athletes competing in 43 events. It was a modest start, but it laid the foundation for what the Olympics would become.
That's amazing. And how did the Olympics grow from there?
The Olympics grew steadily over the years. The second Games were held in Paris in 1900, and more countries and athletes participated. The early Olympics were sometimes chaotic and poorly organized, but they became more professional and prestigious as time went on. New sports were added, and the Games began to attract more international attention.
When did women start competing in the Olympics?
Women first competed in the 1900 Paris Games, but only in a few events like tennis and golf. It wasn't until the 1920s and 1930s that more events were open to female athletes. The inclusion of women was a gradual process, and it took many years for them to have equal opportunities in the Olympics.
That's so cool to hear. I can't imagine the Olympics without women now. What about the Winter Olympics? When did they start?
The first Winter Olympics were held in 1924 in Chamonix, France. The Winter Games were created to celebrate sports that couldn't be held in the summer, like skiing, ice skating, and ice hockey. The Winter Olympics have grown significantly since then and are now a major part of the Olympic tradition.
That's awesome. It's so cool how the Olympics have evolved and grown over time. What about the Olympic rings? I've seen them a lot. What do they mean?
The Olympic rings are one of the most recognizable symbols in the world. They were designed by Pierre de Coubertin in 1913. The 5 interlocking rings represent the 5 inhabited continents of the world: Africa, the Americas, Asia, Europe, and Oceania. The rings are intertwined to symbolize the unity and international cooperation of the Olympic movement.
I love that. It's such a great symbol of bringing people together. Do you know any other interesting facts about the modern Olympics, Dad?
Oh, there are so many fascinating stories. For example, the 1936 Berlin Olympics were the first to be broadcast on television, although only a limited number of people could watch. Then there's the story of Jesse Owens, an African-American athlete who won 4 gold medals at those very games, challenging the Nazi propaganda of Aryan superiority.
That's incredible. I've heard of Jesse Owens. He must have been so brave to compete there. What about the Olympic torch? Where did that tradition come from?
The Olympic torch relay is another modern invention. It was introduced in the 1936 Berlin Olympics. The idea was to symbolize the connection between the ancient and modern games. The torch is lit in Olympia, Greece, and then carried by a relay of runners to the host city, where it lights the Olympic cauldron at the opening ceremony.
That's such a beautiful tradition. It really connects the past with the present. How have the Olympics changed in recent years?
In recent years, the Olympics have continued to grow and evolve. They've become a global phenomenon, with billions of people watching the Games on television and online. The Games have also faced challenges like political controversies, concerns about doping, and the massive costs of hosting the event. But they remain a powerful symbol of international cooperation and human achievement.
It's amazing how much the Olympics have changed over time, but still kept that spirit of bringing people together. What about you, Dad? Do you have a favorite Olympic moment?
There are so many great moments, but I think one of my favorites is the story of the Miracle on Ice at the 1980 Winter Olympics. The U.S. ice hockey team, made up of amateur and collegiate players, defeated the heavily favored Soviet team in what was considered one of the greatest upsets in sports history. It was a moment that brought the whole country together.
That sounds incredible. It must have been amazing to watch. I think my favorite would be Simone Biles in gymnastics. She's just amazing.
Simone Biles is truly a phenomenon. Her talent, determination, and grace are inspiring. The Olympics have a way of showcasing incredible athletes like her, and it's always exciting to see who will make history next.
Thanks for telling me all about the Olympics, Dad. I feel like I've learned so much today. Maybe one day I'll get to see the Games in person.
I hope so, Mia. Seeing the Olympics in person is a magical experience. And who knows, maybe you'll even get to compete one day.
Laughs. Maybe. For now, I'm just happy to learn about it. Thanks, Dad.
Anytime, sweetheart. I'm always here to share a bit of history with you.